Hello, friends from the comic world. My name is Hector,
And my name is G.
and we're here to talk to you about the collected editions that are coming out during the month of November 2023. Uh, G and I work for Penguin Random House, and we manage sales into the direct comic market around the world. So titles that we talk about in these videos are from the publishers that we represent into those markets. Also note, you might see some titles that repeated from previous months because sometimes there's delays, production issues, scheduling issues, whatever. So you might see a few titles that repeat. We also want to mention and highlight that we're on social media aside from YouTube where you're watching this video. We're also on Instagram, we are on X Twitter, and we are also on Facebook under at PRH International Comics. And I think that's it, right? That's it.
One thing
Go.
to mention, you
Oh,
might see some
yes.
titles that you might have seen previously on our other
Uh,
videos. There always delays and production delays and so forth. So keep that in mind if you see some repeats. So,
okay. This is going to be funny when we finish, but that's fine. Because I just said that too.
oh, did you?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
We'll talk about it later. Don't worry. But that was great.
I can't
Also, but
believe
I did
I
forget. I
I
thought you were going to say because I did forget to mention how we do these. So first of all, G and I talk about a few of our picks for this month, some of our favorite titles that are coming out during the month. Then we'll go through a couple of slides of some titles that we want to highlight, and then we'll leave you with the rest of the list and we'll play some music with slides so you can see the cover. So make sure to stay till the end so you can see everything that is coming out from Penguin Random House, or I should say distributed by Penguin Random House, during the month of November 2023. Okay, so let's get
okay.
started.
First up is me. We have
Yes.
Dr. Mobius.
Yeah.
I said that weird. Dr. Mobius and Mr. Uh, Ger Gerald Ger
Sure. I think
Ger
it's sure.
Gerald for
Yeah.
Gerald.
Yeah.
So this is cool because so Numa Sador, who is like a French, I think he was like originally like grew up in Africa, but is a French speaking French written initially, but then this got translated, and this is going to be translated for the first time. I mentioned Numa because Numa not only is known for the Ventures of Tintin, but is known for his landmark interviews with Mobius. And so, if you're into those long form interview formats, just wanting to know the behind the scenes of these two big creators, this is such an interesting read for you. And so, highly recommend picking this up. This reflects the time, like the heavy metal era, breakthrough era of Mobius's career, and it tracks all the way up until his untimely passing. So that's the time span that you're going to be looking at here. But definitely wanted to shine a spotlight on this because of how interesting of a story and interesting again of the behind the scenes that you could read through. So that's it for me for this month.
Okay. And the next is my first pick. It's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, Groot Fall. This is written by Jackson Lansing and also Colin Kelly, and it's illustrated by Kev Walker. And the cover has been designed by Marco Cecchero. So, Guardians of the Galaxy since the last movie came out, it's been big, and the people have been um, fanning over it. And I think this not only gave fans this story arc, which includes the first 5 issues of this run, um, it's not given not only the characters that they love from the video game that came last year, from because they're the regular MCU team up of Star Lord, Drax, Gamora, Mantis, Rocket, and Groot, but it's also such an amazing story. It's especially goes very well with the last movie because it's kind of a heartbreaking story where this group that has been friends and family for so long, all of a sudden, one of them, Groot, betrays everybody, and it's endangering not just their lives, but the lives of the universe. Not going to give a lot of details, but they have to go around the universe, the galaxy, as there's a civil war happening, but at the same time, group has to become a menace to everything that exists. And you see in the story a lot of that premise on its own is a very cool action sci-fi premise, but within it, what the creators have done is they put this very cool story about what should we do. Should we keep trying to save our friend, but or are we the guardians of the galaxy? Should we defend the galaxy even though it's against our friend? And there's a lot of that happening, a lot of emotions about the relationships of these characters. I love that these new arc, it seems like usually when you have these teams and you have a new arc, they kind of go to the basics and they're meeting each other again and in a different way or a different lineup. This is your, like I said, the same team up you have seen in the MCU and in the last few years in comics. Now, but you jump into a story right in the middle of a story where they've known each other for so long and they have to deal with this huge issue with one member of their family, which happens to be, I think, the heart of the whole family. So it is a very cool story. At all, it doesn't feel by when you think of Guardians of the Galaxy that it'd be that kind of story, but it is a very emotional, touching story. I highly recommend this, and I think fans are really going to pick it up. Like I said, because they're wanting more Guardians of the Galaxy, definitely.
Mhm. Next up is the Matriarchs, and this is written by Luann Brickhouse, Jennifer Rhee, and illustrated and lettered by a bunch of other people here. And this one is about, so what happens in the story is there is these two female researchers that survive this mass prison riot, which shouldn't be survivable, but they can't say that word. They emerge unscathed, which is very weird because, like, how can you come out of this without even like a cut on you, right? But that ordeal reveals them for who they are. So they're basically an immortal race of women with superhuman abilities, with a violent secret history. And so they're racing off to try to like head off an impending threat of all men on the planet, casual. And then they must confront their like unforgivable past and resurrect the very worst demons just to save us all. So very interesting, like action-packed story written by this duo that you see here. And then yeah, I just think it's like a really interesting look into like the strength of women, morals and values of humankind, all in one packaged in this hardcover.
Very cool. Next is my next pick, Planeta Blue Volume 1. Oop,
Oh,
Planeta
did you go
Blue
further?
Volume 1. Yeah,
Whoops.
too much. There we go.
Yeah,
No
there you go.
spoilers. No spoilers.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Planeta Blue Volume 1, Rise of Agu, written by Tim Bless and art and color and lettering by Michael Laricia. And I learned how to pronounce the name on my video, by the way. And introduction by Van Jones, which people outside the US might not know who Van Jones is, but he's a political um, news person, I guess, but he's also a very renowned writer here in the US. So the first, I need to mention that this was a very successful Kickstarter um, campaign from back in 2020, I believe. And also that Temblest is a socially conscious hip hop artist. he's an African American, but that was born in Guinea-Bissau in West Africa, and uh, he has been doing a lot of not just hip hop, but and socially conscious hip hop, but also he's being very involved with the causes of uh, saving the planet and consciousness about the planet and how to save it and all that. So he has a very huge following, not just in the US, but around the world. And he came up with this story uh, about a group of teens that you see on the cover from different backgrounds and different, very diverse and backgrounds, although two of them are siblings. And they encounter, first of all, this world in the world, there's this evil CEO of a oil conglomerate who's trying to take over the world and is doing many things to take the world to kind of take over by destroying nature. And these teens, they find themselves all of a sudden with powers, which start with communicating with creatures, with animals, but they also get all these other powers, each one, um, and they have to leave their home in Massachusetts, or at least the home of the main two characters, to go around the world and try to save the planet, try to save the animals from this oil tycoon that I mentioned before, the sinister oil tycoon. And it's very beautiful in art. It's very epic. When I say they go around the world, not just around the world, but also underwater, because they also end up in Atlantis at one point. It is very, like I said, it's an epic story. uh, I was reading and watching some interviews from the author, and he says that it's like a mixture between like Narnia and Hunger Games, and like he puts a lot of things. And he has always, in several places I saw that he mentions that his goal is not just to end on this book, but also to continue into animation with this story. Like I said, it was extremely popular and very successful Kickstarter. So much so that now Dark Horse has decided to print a trade paperback edition of it with the introduction by Van Jones, and it also includes some sketches that are not included in the original Kickstarter edition. Uh, and also, I want to mention also about the artist, because he's an artist that's been around for a long time, doing a whole lot of things, and uh, he has won many awards. Mike has won many awards, and he has a bunch of degrees. Like he has I think it's a master's in printmaking, among other things. So this is a title. It's really good to see artists in general doing what they do, but it's also amazing when you see two people who are very knowledgeable and they use that knowledge combined with their creativity to come up with something like this. And Tim Bless says every time he gets a chance that he wants to use this book as sort of something to at least move the needle a little bit on people's conscience about how we're treating the planet and how we need to save the planet. So very, very cool. Obviously, it didn't have the volume one when it was a Kickstarter. Dark Horse put a volume one. They also have sort of made a deal with Tim Bless and Michael Laricia, so there's going to be more stories. So this is not the end of it either. So looking forward to this one to come out, and I highly recommend picking this one up. Yeah.
Next up is Rose Wolves. Not to blame Rose Wolves, but I was distracted by this book in the beginning. I blame my blip earlier for this book because of how stunning it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Rose, you're like, no, how can you blame it
Sure, sure.
on this title? I also feel like I've talked about this one before, so I'm like,
I
oh,
think you
this
did,
might
but
be
it
the
was
one.
like on a weekly picks or
It
something.
might have
Yeah,
been
yeah,
on
yeah.
a, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, anyway, This is this is for fans of Tea Dragon Society. Like, if you like that one, you're sure to love this one as well. A little girl picks up an unusual flower from an unusual bush, and overnight the flower blooms into a magical creature, a rose wolf that you see here on the cover, who is missing a leg just like that she's missing an arm. This is a silent, two-color graphic novel fable about disability, companionship, and transformation. And again, this is such a beautiful story. It's magical, and yeah, it will warm your heart for sure. So
Yeah,
this is another one that I'm highly looking forward to in November.
yeah, it feels like a very classic uh fairy tale kind of thing, which I
Yeah.
love, which I love.
Mhm.
Anyway, and next up, Sigil. This is by Barbara Kessel and various Marvel authors, and then illustrated by Ben Lai and also various Marvel artists. And this cover in particular is the by Ben Lai, and we'll see a direct market one on the next slide in a minute. Um, I do want to mention this is part of the cross-gen stories, and the reason why there's so many creators involved is because it collects a lot of the stories. This was I've talked about cross-gen in other videos. I talked about it when recently Marvel published a new one-shot anthology of new stories in the cross-gen world. And this is it's cross-gen. If you don't know, it was this universe from late 90s, early 2000s that it was its own publisher imprint, and then Marvel took it over at some point, and it has so many stories and so many characters. And this collects the stories and the characters from Sigil, and there's like I'm not gonna mention all of them, but there's like the main 42 issues from Sigil in 2000, but there's also other um, issues in other series where the character show-ups are collected in here too. And the story is about the main character, which you see in the middle, kind of with the glowing heart in hand. And this is Sam, and Sam all of a sudden he gets this glowing sigil that burns into his chest and gives him some grants him access to a lot of power. And it's the story of him and his crew traveling across the cosmos, battling enemies, trying to unravel the mystery of the sigil that attached to his chest. And like I said, I love the cross gen universe because it is this huge, very underrated sci-fi universe where a lot of things happen. So you're going to see a lot of planets, a lot of alien races, and of course, a lot of action. And like I mentioned before, this is the main cover, the trade cover, uh, done by the illustrator Ben Nye. But then in the next slide, then you're going to see the direct market cover only. And I thought I had in here who was the artist. Sorry, I thought I had it in my notes in here, and I do. It's Scott Eaton is the artist for this cover. Um, so highly recommended picking this up and also checking out the other CrossGens titles. We have a few of those available from Marvel, and I'm sure they're gonna keep putting these out because people want them. So this is a great time to jump on it.
So next up is highlighting some titles. I'll begin with this. We have Alien by Alien Shalvey and Ricardo. This is volume one Thaw. Apologies for my pronunciation. And next up we have, oh no, another name. But I'm gonna just say The Witcher, The Lesser Evil by Sapkowski. I think I got it right.
Good. Yeah.
And then we have Aquaman Andromeda. This is by Ram V. And then we have this one, which I read the prose work by Robin Hobb, which is a lot of fun. So this is the graphic novel version, and this is Assassin's Apprentice Volume 1, but this is adapted and written by Jody Hauser. Then we have Black Sand Beach. This is Volume 4, Where Do Monsters Come From by Richard Fairgray. So another iteration for this title.
Okay, and we'll continue with Bodies, one of G's favorite, new edition by Cy Spencer. And then we also have Dungeons and Dragons, the Library Collection Volume 1. This is by R.A. Salvatore and a group of other writers included in here. I really want this. I mean, the IDW Library editions are amazing, and I definitely need to get this. Then we have Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's Library, which is one of our biggest properties from middle grade. This is the graphic novel version by writer Chris Graberstein. There's also Ex Machina, the complete series omnibus new edition by Brian K. Vaughan. And then we have the Fifth Beatle, the Brian Epstein story. And this is an anniversary edition of this book written by Vivek J. Twari. And there's always been like for a long time, they've been talking about a movie from this graphic novel. Hopefully it'll be coming soon. This is a New York Times bestseller title.
Next up, we have Groot Uprooted by Dan Abnett. And then we have Hawkeye by Matt Fraction with Aja. This is the omnibus. You're seeing first the direct market version, and then we have the regular cover right next to it there, which is very iconic. And then Hellboy in Love, this is Mike Mignola with Christopher Golden, and then John Byron's X-Men Artist Edition by John Byron himself.
Yeah, and I want to mention that the Groot Uprooted is a miniseries that came out as a prequel to the new run of the Guardians of the Galaxy. So if you want to know a little bit more about what happens in the Guardians of the Galaxy that I mentioned, the first arc, it starts with this Groot Uprooted. And we continue with John Romita's Amazing Spider-Man, the Daily Strips Artist Edition, obviously by John Romita, who recently passed away. So it's a great way to honor his memory. And then also we have The Last Kids on Earth, The Monster Dimension by Max Brailer, a new title from the best-selling, New York Times best-selling Netflix top streaming series, The Last Kids on Earth. And then we have Oni Running, created by Mark Flavel, scenario writer Nagamin Kohei. And then we have the Sandman Universe, Dead Boy Detectives by Porsak. You can say the name better than I
think.
Thank you.
Yes.
Because you're a big fan.
I am a fan. And then next up, we have the Sandman, Morpheus, Helm, Masterpiece Edition in all its glory. That we also have a direct market version available. That's not what the direct market version looks like. That's just the regular version. But just letting you know, that's also available to pick up as well. And then we have Spider-Man by Tom Taylor. And then Spring Comes Riding in a Carriage by Richie Yokomitsu. And then Star Trek Defiant Volume 1, Christopher Cantwell and Angel Unzueta. And then Transitions. This is Elodie Durand, which is a good one to pick up as well.
Yep.
And I think that's it for highlights. Yeah. And then
so now we're gonna, sorry, it was my cue. I kicked this my cue. Yes. So sorry. So next we're gonna, like I said before, we're gonna leave you with the rest of the list. You can watch it as the slides go by with a little bit of music, but definitely stick until the end so you know what is coming. You make sure you check out everything that's coming in November. Thank you so much for watching this. We hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment on this video. And like we said before, you can also find us on Instagram, X, Twitter, and Facebook under at PRH International Comics. Thank you again, and we hope to see you soon again. Bye.
Bye, everyone.